Pinterest is about yourself, not your selfie.
For many people, if they're getting the inspiration, they might as well just buy it.
What we say is basically we bring the joy of shopping back to e-commerce.
You're touching almost everyone in e-commerce, one way or the other, right?
We currently have 19 million monthly active users in Germany alone.
Do you notice some patterns where Germans really stand out? Hello and welcome to this episode of the E-commerce Germany News Podcast. I'm your host, FF Fontainen, and today I'm delighted to introduce to you Martin Bardeleben. Martin is the Managing Director of Pinterest Germany, and throughout this conversation, you'll get concrete tips and actionable insights from Martin as to how e-commerce businesses can thrive on Pinterest and how Pinterest is evolving from an inspiration platform to a platform that converts leads and helps businesses. So let's get started. Hi, Martin. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you here.
Hi, Phil. Thank you for the invitation. Really happy to be here.
Yeah. So I think you're one of those people that don't need an introduction, but we'll do it anyway. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. Yeah. So I'm Martin. I'm Managing Director for Pinterest Germany. And I started my career 20 years ago in consumer electronics at Philips, so a traditional Hamburg company, Dutch-based, obviously. But I was there, switching roles between marketing and sales. And after 10 years, I went to Google, based in Vienna. And I led a sales team there, building the Austrian business. And then I went into marketing, back into marketing, moving to Hamburg with Google. And I was a consumer marketing head for Google's hardware business.
Beautiful office in Hamburg.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And then in August 2020, I joined Pinterest, first for the Northern Europe region, leading the CPG team, and I switched roles to retail. Yeah. And since April last year, I'm managing director for the Germany business.
So you started during Corona, right after like April onwards, it was like lockdowns and everything. How was that at that time?
I think it was a pretty exciting time for everyone, like in all dimensions, both personally, having two kids, right, 9 and 12 in school, homeschooling was an adventure, obviously, and equally professionally, I think, starting a new job, getting to know the people, the team only virtually, leading a team only virtually was interesting, to say the least. Yeah. And it was an experience. I think we all learned a lot about the opportunities of virtual and remote work and how it works best. But also, I think we got to appreciate, real life connections once they came back. Yeah. But for Pinterest in particular, it was a very interesting time as people spend a lot of time at home. Mm. And many of the use cases of Pinterest brought a lot of inspiration to people, right? So they looked for, things to do in their homes, how to decorate homes and gardens, and how to spend time with their family and kids. So Pinterest was really kind of a source of inspiration and positivity for people during the pandemic. And obviously it still is, but during that time, I think it was we were really delivering a lot to people.
It kind of had tailwind like during that time, right?
Exactly.
We could say. Yeah. And like many of us, I can just agree with you. I couldn't agree more. I also found myself like researching new project ideas. All of a sudden, I was stuck in this small apartment, like looking for things to do. So it definitely makes sense. But why Pinterest? How did you get to this opportunity, if I may ask?
Of course. I mean, my time at Google was really great, and I loved the roles I had both in sales and in marketing. But I felt like it's time for something more entrepreneurial, right? So something where I can again build something. And Pinterest, by the time I joined, was pretty fresh in at least with the monetization side of things. So the region actually was starting to monetize only a year before I joined in 2019. So I found it really cool to build that team, build the business, build the relationships from a kind of holistic perspective. And I like that aspect. And I always use that analogy of probably it's going to feel like changing from a premium economy seat in an Airbus to a very small jet in the midst of turbulences, i.e. the pandemic, right? But closer to the cockpit, right? And I think that's exactly what happened. So I was much closer to the cockpit. I felt the turbulences more. So you're closer to what happens out there in the market in a smaller company, relatively small compared to Google. And it was a really, really fun ride to build the business, build the team, and we're really successful. When I look back at these 3 years, a lot has happened. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But that was my motivation to join. And first of all, thinking about the mission of the company, bringing everyone the inspiration to create their life they love, that was really something that fascinated me and still does. So that's why I, joined Pinterest.
That sounds fascinating, and I love the analogy that you brought with the cockpit and the turbulences, because I think at the end of the day, it's for many of us also purpose at the job is super important, right? So
Absolutely.
Not just doing something to earn money, but actually doing something meaningful where you can really unleash your true power. And I see that in you already. You've already shown a good track record of sales and marketing success throughout the organization. We will get to that, but maybe we take a step back at first and just say, what is Pinterest?
Absolutely. Yes, I think I mentioned our mission already, right? So bringing everyone the inspiration to create a life they love. That's, what it all starts with. And I think Pinterest is a very unique place in the sense of we're at this intersection of search, social, and commerce, right? And what's really unique about Pinterest is our users' mindset, because it is really a planning mindset. It is a intent that people come to Pinterest with, right? They're planning for big and small moments, like maybe the next dinner or garden party, but also big moments like obviously Christmas or any kind of holiday or New Year's Eve, their wedding, their move, a new house, the apartment, right? So you're a user as well. So this is kind of the intent, and it's very much a lean forward attitude that people come to Pinterest.
So they're not couch potatoes.
Exactly. It's not a lean back, just entertainment, scrolling through something, but they want to do something, right? And it's a very positive place. So we invest a lot into the positivity of the platform and the positive experience that people have on Pinterest.
How do you do that, and how is it? Let's say maybe in comparison to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all these platforms. Can you say that you've built a complete different experience full of positive feelings, or? I'm also a user, but I want to hear it from you firsthand how you've built it.
Yeah, of course. And we should talk about how you are using Pinterest as well in a second, and what you're pinning right now. But I think what we do is, when we think about that user intent, people come to Pinterest with, we want to give them the opportunity to get from inspiration to realization, right? And it's like what we used to say is Pinterest is about yourself, not your selfie, right? So, and you're not coming to Pinterest to be entertained or to comment, but you're actually having that me time. So it's a very conscious process of finding inspiration for things to do, right? I can give you an example. Like I rebuilt my attic in our house a while back. And so I created this board with attic inspiration. And there were lots of pictures from Amsterdam. Obviously, they have a lot of attics. But then we have an architect, a friend of ours, who used that board and basically built that attic. And now this is exactly the journey. So I got from this inspiration to actually doing it. There's lots more examples. Like I, for example, planned for a trip to England just recently. And so I did this board with inspiration, with sites to visit. So what we do is really create this place where people can get from inspiration to realization. And the positivity comes is a conscious choice. So we're having lots of guidelines that we implement for both ads and content that make sure that the positivity is there. For example, there's no political ads. We also banned weight loss ads, so what we call like toxic beauty advice. And there's many more examples of that, how we deliberately create that positivity on Pinterest. And that's why it's different. It's both the intent of users and it's the context we create. And for brands, it means it's a super brand safe space.
So you're kind of actively steering that as opposed to just creating the platform and letting it be. You're intending to keep this as a positive experience. That's super interesting. And I also want to ask you about the journeys. So most of us go to our feeds and just kind of scroll through different stuff and maybe get inspired along the way, but sometimes it's also just dumb or numb scrolling, you know what I mean? Whereas with Pinterest, you clearly address an audience that is highly motivated to do something, gets inspired, and they have a motivation, that they have some idea at the back of their mind to get to doing, right?
Exactly.
So to me, that shows like you guys are clearly differentiated in the market, you know? So for us, you know, we are the e-commerce experts here. We are very much interested in also the intertwined way how Pinterest can help e-commerce businesses. Can you give us a little bit of insight as to how Pinterest is activating or unleashing the power of e-commerce business?
Of course, yeah. Before I do that, can I ask you what you're using Pinterest for and what you're pinning? Because maybe I can build on that example.
Martin, I can tell you, but it has to stay out as our secret, right?
Okay.
So throughout the last couple of years, my wife and I had several projects to redecorate our home, and I have to admit, I'm not the most talented person in terms of interior design and all these things. So, and I also want to have an opinion, you know. So I don't want to just like leave the decision making to my wife only. So I've been kind of secretly informing myself what fits which type of furniture, you know, like just having kind of an insight from real experts that design homes.
Yeah.
Taking a look at pins and saving my own inspiration on the side. And then when we end up going shopping, then I also have a little bit of ammunition on my mind. And apart from that, the second thing I do is I love working with like do-it-yourself projects together.
Right.
At home. We do some projects from time to time. It's kind of team building at home, you know, and there it also helps like step by step. What did other people do? I mean, during Corona, you had all these people that built vans all of a sudden, right? They would buy an empty cargo van and they would just build it into a RV type of thing, and it was also, I saw a lot of content on that on Pinterest as well.
Great. So I'll build on that example. So that's a good example of a use case, obviously, like home decor is a big vertical on Pinterest. Among many others, we'll talk about that. But where's the connection to e-commerce, right? And so first of all, more than half of pinners, so our users, tell us they want to shop, right? So what we see is getting from inspiration to realization means that that shopping is an integral part of it. And now, if you found some examples of interior design that you liked, you obviously want to shop the items you see on these pins. So, you know, the content you see, you save it on your boards, and ultimately you want to shop that chair, that, you know, that lamp, that sofa, that table, whatever. And what we're doing is basically making every pin shoppable. So that's our mission, right? So we want to give people the opportunity to shop items immediately when they see it. So, and what we call it is basically we increase the actionability, right? So we make people convert from that inspirational phase. People go in with a very broad, exploring mindset, and then ultimately they find products. And just to give you a number, we currently have like more than 1 billion shoppable items on this on the platform. And our
across the globe, or
across the globe, our computer vision basically detects over 2 trillion products. It's a lot that people can recognize with our computer vision, and then shop from the feed that we provide. And the feed is coming from our merchants, right? So merchants and e-commerce platforms, they can ingest their feed, their product catalog.
These are advertisements, right?
Exactly, and it's organic content, and it can be also paid content, so advertising. And so this is what we do. We give people that inspiration, and we also deliver the product.
So 2 tracks.
Exactly, and I'll give you an example. Like one of the tools or the products we've built is called Shop the Look. So you've got a pin for fashion. You might see on some of my pictures, I have a weakness for green overshirts. So, when I shop for those, I get this Shop the Look surface on Pinterest, and basically there's this pin with a cool look I like, and then all the products I see, from trousers to the shirt to the shoes to the beanie, whatever, is displayed, and I can click on it and I can go directly to the product detail page. So that's what we call shoppability or actionability, right? And what we saw is the number of pins that have buyable content that were saved has increased 50% in Q2. So number of saves really increased a lot.
I was gonna say, because when I compare, I've been using Pinterest for many, many years already, but there's been several times, there's been so many times where I got the inspiration from you and just stopped there, and maybe 1-2 weeks later, and I ended up buying from somewhere completely different, which Pinterest definitely helped me throughout the journey, but maybe it didn't convert me. You know what I mean? So I guess this is the kind of bridge that you're building, or you've built recently, that helps e-commerce companies to benefit from this platform. Right?
Exactly. And so the way merchants can connect to Pinterest is in multiple ways. But when we talk about products and the product feed, let's take Shopify as an example. You can just by using a toggle, if you're a Shopify merchant, you can upload your catalog to Pinterest. The same applies for Adobe and Salesforce and other platforms and integrations. So there's an API. So basically, merchants of all sizes, whether it's SMBs or large e-commerce platforms, they can just ingest their catalog, their product feed with us, and give pinners or users the choice to purchase these products directly, whether it's fashion or whether it's home decor or food or beauty products. So there's multiple variations and verticals, obviously. But this is exactly how the e-commerce story comes to play. So ideally, in your use case, you would find exactly that sofa or lamp or whatever, and you can purchase it directly off of Pinterest.
It's also easier, right? Like, I mean, in many cases, in the world of e-commerce, you have price as the predominant factor that people look at, and then convenience, availability, and all these things. And at some point, you also have towards the bottom, but growing impact of sustainability and stuff like that. But convenience is still among the top considerations. So I think for many people, if they're getting the inspiration, they might as well just buy it and get it out of their system, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's also unique about Pinterest is the shopping experience, right? So what we say is basically we bring the joy of shopping back to e-commerce, because e-commerce is in many ways, very rational and very, controlled experience, and where you know what you want many times and you want it fast at the best price. What we're actually providing is that browsing experience, right? So interestingly, we have a case study with KaDeWe here in Berlin that integrated our API for conversions and see great results. And KaDeWe, if you've ever been to any department store, but I think KaDeWe is a good example, that browsing experience is special, right? You get inspired by products, by experiences, and it's something very unique. And we want to bring that experience to Pinterest. And so e-commerce and the joy of shopping, that's what you experience on Pinterest, right? So discovering products, saving these products. And what it means for merchants is people are coming back. So these are multi-sessions and they are non-linear, right? So people are kind of browsing, they're discovering, they're saving it on boards. By the way, that gives a lot of signals, first-party signals to merchants, which are very valuable for targeting as well.
So they can benefit from this data.
Exactly. They can benefit big time from this data, which is particularly important now that cookies deprecate, finally. So this is one of these examples, but I wanted to just point out the difference in the actual shopping journey, which is, again, like a lot of fun also to discover products and find products. And just to say, like, we currently have 19 million monthly active users in Germany alone.
I think that's almost 1/3 of all internet users in Germany, right?
Exactly. So
per month, at least one time visiting Pinterest.
Monthly actives, yeah.
That's huge. It's fair to say that this impact, like you're touching almost everyone in e-commerce, one way or the other, right? Yeah, it's but then again, like as an SMB, right? So we have many smaller merchants that watch and consume this podcast through our channels. They might be asking, themselves like, okay, this is great what Martin is saying with lots of passion and like it seems to work for bigger companies also. Do you have like 3 do's and don'ts? Like, hey, keep it simple, get on Pinterest, and in many cases, you don't start with the most comprehensive plan. You just get started somewhere. So it would be super great to hear it from you if you have concrete tips for our merchants.
Of course, yeah. So first of all, SMB for us is a large part of our revenue and of our customer base. So and SMBs see lots of success across all kinds of verticals. We have like a couple of case studies as well out there. For example, Spring Lane, a Kartenmacherei, a couple of other examples. But like the 3 do's and don'ts, and maybe a couple of do's and don'ts that I would say is, first, if you're getting started, it's really simple. Like you need a business account and you go straight into Ads Manager. I think then creative is key, right? So make it simple. There is some rules, let's say, when it comes to creative that people should adhere to. Like it should be novel, it should be visually appealing, it should be like inspiring in a way.
No weight loss content.
Exactly, that's a good one. We don't allow that. It should be like attainable, and people should be inspired by the content. And you could start with static pins, obviously, right? And you can go into video if you have that content. But it's very simple to just use that. The second piece is if you have a product catalog, upload it, right? Ingest it via the API, or if you have Shopify merchant, make your products available. And that's very simple. And then I think full funnel is key because people are having this browsing experience that I just mentioned. So reflecting that in your media strategy. So from awareness to consideration to conversion is really important, and it drives better results. And ultimately, I think for everyone in e-commerce and digital marketing, it's now about measurement and measurability. So implement the API for conversions, right? Make sure you have a third-party measurement solution in place. So basically, you really see results. So I think these are some of the do's and don'ts I would mention. And the full funnel piece, I think, is unique and gives a lot of opportunities for SMBs because people are in this discovery mode, right?
Yeah.
They love discovering new brands. And in fact, we have a lot of SMBs that have a lot of incrementality on Pinterest because they find new audiences. Just because their mindset of users is so open that SMBs find new audiences. And I think that's key.
But can they still promote their identity, brand identity within Pinterest? Because many of the time, as you know, Amazon accounts for 53% of all e-commerce sales in Germany. Yeah. And there's recently been a study among merchants, and many of these merchants have the problem that they can't bring their brand across. So they're just a product. Amazon is a search engine for products. So you find a product, you buy the product, everything contained within this marketplace has advantages and disadvantages. But how is it on Pinterest? So as a smaller business, you're obviously, I differentiate. You mentioned e-commerce can be very structured, like a kind of logical price and stuff like that. But then again, there's a growing community of love brands right now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're the ones that maybe a regional shop that people want to support, as long as they offer the same convenience digitally and they have a nice brand that they've built. The consumers want to support them and buy from them, right? Yeah. So there's a growing community like that. So for these love brands, do they have the chance to also be themselves, like bring their brand identity on Pinterest?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good question. And again, if you think about where do brands want to show up and what's the context that they want to be in, I think positivity and brand safety, first of all, is absolutely key. So that's what we provide as Pinterest. And I think for any brand, small or big, that's absolutely key. And for love brand, I think that's super key because mostly love brands have that purpose, right? That attitude, and that comes with really choosing where and how to show up. So that's one. I think the other part is like just tactically, obviously, if you build your Pinterest profile, right, with the pins you created and you actually saved, as a brand, you can already show like your personality on Pinterest with that profile. And if you're a verified merchant, so if you have like measurement systems in place and your feed uploaded and the feed is healthy, etc. So you basically also can get some, let's say, tags as a verified merchant, for example, sustainable merchant. So these are things where you can really build a profile as a merchant, as an e-commerce platform, small or big. And I think there's many ways to do that. If you have the capacity to do like content marketing, so organic marketing, obviously that's a huge opportunity as well, right? So because pinners love inspirational content from brands, and you can also do that with creators, right? So, and there's many ways to build that brand and own the brand, to your point, which Pinterest provides.
That sounds great. I also wanted to ask you about, you said since 2020, the company is growing, at least in the markets that you're responsible. Can you give us a couple of numbers, like in terms of how much growth you're seeing in Germany, and also super interesting for us to hear it from you, how you see the current paradigm in e-commerce, because many businesses are a bit unsure. There's the Ukraine war still, although there's like Israel-Palestine conflict and all these other things happening in the world. Because of the proximity, many merchants are still concerned how things will go. There's been the inflation wave. How do you see the German market, and how's Pinterest growing? How are the numbers looking?
Yeah. I think, well, first of all, we don't publish like Germany numbers in particular, but I can talk a little bit about like the development we had. And so globally, first of all, when it comes to users, 482 million global monthly actives. That's a record high. That's just been released in Q3. Revenues grew like 11%. So we've been really on a very good track over the last 9 months, we can say, right? Q4 results still to come. But so there's really a traction we see both on the user side and the monetization and the revenue side. And so some of the things in Germany in particular that stand out is from the top 20 Nielsen ad spenders, and these are the big spenders, obviously, like 80% are on Pinterest, right? And active advertisers. And we've broadened the advertiser base as well. So basically, when you look at SMB, for example, that's a fast growing segment also within Pinterest. So we do see a lot of traction also coming from that. Globally, again, if you look at some of the numbers, what's interesting is 50% revenue growth in shopping is outpacing any other revenue. So basically what we're seeing is shopping is one of the biggest contributor to growth. And shopping saves. I mentioned that number earlier. So that's really something where we see also a shift of users to interact and engage with shopping content, so buyable items, but equally spending more on Pinterest. So we have studies that pinners basically spend 2x compared to other platforms and have up to 85% bigger baskets. Why is that? Because if you look back at this KaDeWe example, the browsing experience, if you take a little bit more time, you usually end up buying more. Right? You're inspired by more product. And I love to give this example, your home decor example. You were looking for a sofa, and basically you're buying a complete interior design for your new living room, right? So you're buying that lamp, the table, etc. You were inspired by it. So it's a different journey.
Maybe it's comparable to actually all these companies that have a physical presence to try to bring people to the store, because the moment you're in the store to pick up an item, you end up buying another. You're 60% more likely to buy another item if you go in already. Exactly.
And so to your second part of the question, like how do I see the e-commerce space? I think, and what's the outlook? I think when I look at it from a Pinterest perspective, I'm very optimistic, like in the sense of how we build the platform within that positivity that I just described, while we increase actionability for pinners, for users, and shoppability. So that will give a lot more opportunities for merchants to be discovered in the first place, SMBs, right? To be bought, and also to convert and grow their audiences. So, and I think this is really, I'm optimistic on that. I think when it comes to the economic outlook for next year, I'm, let's say, cautiously optimistic about next year, looking at a macro perspective, because I feel like consumer sentiment could recover over the next couple of months, just given that some of the macro indicators like inflation are coming down. And so I do see that we have that opportunity to also go back into a more healthy trajectory of growth. and consumer confidence, I think, will stabilize and come back. So I'm looking at a more positive outlook. Obviously, e-commerce has been through hyper growth, a very strong steep curve.
Yeah.
Flattening
for many
out,
years. Yeah.
Flattening out after the pandemic, right? So I think, and now we're probably going back to a steeper growth that's going to come, and a higher share of overall revenue from e-commerce as a part of the overall.
How about Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Is that a thing on Pinterest that is huge, or?
Absolutely, no, it's a big deal, literally.
I like that.
And we do see that it has grown big time over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So because when I joined, obviously in 2020, Pinterest's shopping journey or shopping positioning was already there, but we've increased it so much. We've made it front and center of our strategy. Yeah. And so for pinners, coming to Pinterest with an commercial intent and wanting to buy has become more of a habit. So what we're seeing is that these deal periods like Black Friday, Cyber Monday are much more top of mind for users, and they're coming to Pinterest to really kind of purchase items, and that makes a difference. And we do see it in traffic and interactions and engagement and revenue, obviously, during Black Friday.
Yeah.
So it does make a difference, yeah.
And especially during those times, those e-commerce companies that do have this integration, that do the things that you described with advertisement, organic content, they benefit from these conversions the most. Absolutely. I would assume, right?
Absolutely. And there's many examples of, let's say, online to offline conversions as well.
Yeah.
So we had a recent case study also with Aldi Nord, Biomarkt, Mediamarkt, so big box or grocery retailers that see both online conversions and really strong ROAS numbers, but equally online to offline conversions. So, and that's something, and you just described that journey yourself. You have that board with pins, and you're walking into a store to choose something or to guide your purchase, and that's something we're also seeing. So that's a big area. And what's interesting is over the last years, travel, for example, has become a huge vertical as well. Yeah. So we're seeing pinners do that. As I said, like I did this South of England tour, 2 weeks. It was raining the entire time, but it was still a great holiday, just saying.
But travel in the sense of like, hey, these are the countries I visited, here's what you can do there, or what exactly do you mean?
It's interesting because users on Pinterest don't look back, they're actually looking ahead. They're so they're not sharing what they've done or what they're currently doing, but they're searching for things to do in the future, which is a fundamental difference. So that gives a lot of signal to any business, whether it's a travel agent or a cruise company. Basically, people are searching for destinations. And the interesting part is in travel, they're not looking for hotel in Barcelona in January 2024. They're looking for the nicest beaches in Europe. Yeah. So it's a very broad term. And then they're finding their way maybe to Barcelona. It has nice beaches, obviously. But that's the way people are searching on Pinterest.
Yeah.
And the same applies for automotive, for example, right? So automotive companies like Volkswagen, they did a couple of case studies with us as well. They get so many signals from Pinterest about users in terms of what life stage are they in, so that they can really target people based on that audience, based on these audience signals, and based on interest, based on demographics, obviously, etc. Yeah. But they can find audiences which are in a certain life stage and are making a decision for a car or financial services, right? LBS, we just recently announced a case study. So my point here is it's much more than home decor, right? So we have so many verticals that are really working well. And the same applies for SMBs. Whatever you do, if you have these signals and you find the right audience on Pinterest, there's so many opportunities to talk to these audiences.
May I ask you what the top 5 verticals or segments are where SMBs have lots of opportunity? Maybe we can go through them.
Of course. So one of the biggest one is food, obviously. Then it's beauty. Beauty is a big one. Fashion, green overshirts. There's home decor.
Yeah.
And home decor and interior design is a huge field, right? You have garden, you have interior design, you have all kinds of furniture. So that's big. And travel. And then increasingly we have things like automotive, which are also
interesting.
Which are also coming to play. Absolutely. Yeah. So but these verticals are like the key ones. And we have many examples of SMBs in that field, and Spring Lane, I just mentioned that, Kartenmacherei, for example.
Do you notice something very particular about Germany, like in terms of user preferences? We often ask our colleagues that do multi-markets, like they're not only responsible for Germany, but they do EMEA, for example, or APAC, something like that. Do you notice some patterns where Germans really stand out?
Well, I think one of the things is, as far as I recall, they're pinning avocados, they're like that. So that's one of the examples I would give. Other than that, in terms of the vertical distribution, there's pretty much a pattern that applies like across markets, at least in Europe. There's slight differences, obviously, between the US and Europe, for example. But in terms of behaviors, I would call out one thing, which is sustainability.
Yeah.
That's something really Germans are particularly fond of. We have a couple of research studies that we did. And for example, that Aldi Nord case study or Biomarkt, they banked specifically on people's price consciousness on the one hand, but equally sustainability on the other side. Because we do see, and we have cases with the Deutsche Bahn, for example, or Vodafone, which explicitly banked on sustainability and the green aspect of the product or service. So that is typically German. Which is great, and we're also seeing good traction about renewable energy services like that, and solar power exactly in that field. So these are some of the examples I would say, besides the avocado, which are typically German.
Also, one thing I forgot to ask you at the beginning, I just realized, is what's like in terms of the target group that you have of your users. What's the average age group that you cater to?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So first of all, globally, when we look at the 482 million monthly actives, 40% of that audience is Gen Z. So we do have a huge population in Gen Z. It's the fastest growing population as well. And it's our most engaged audience, which is interesting. Like that cohort of users, that new cohort is the most engaged, right? So they're having more sessions, more saves.
Great sign that the business is on a future-proof track.
Totally, that's a really great sign. When you look at Germany, so the 19 million monthly actives, by the way, if you look at the DACH region, it's roughly 22 million, right? So if you speak of the DACH market, which many SMBs are also targeting. And so roughly 2/3 of the audience is female, 1/3 is male.
And also diverse.
Absolutely. And when you look at the age range, just to give you an example, it's very balanced across age ranges. 45% of users are between 18 and 34 years old. So just to give you an example. So it's really like a good balance in audience. And I think what's unique is the buying power of the audience. So we do have stats about the social demographic criteria or dimensions of the audience, and it's the intent. So people really wanting to buy, wanting to do something, which makes that audience profile very interesting for businesses.
Sounds fantastic. I think that's a great way to wrap things up. I truly enjoyed this conversation, listening to you. One thing that really occurred to me is that as a leader also running this massive engine, you speak with lots of passion, which is an inspiration to me. Martin, thank you so much for being with us. I enjoyed talking about the target group that you cater to, finding out what really is Pinterest this time, and also how e-commerce companies in Germany can benefit from that, and even like benefit more from Pinterest, because one way or the other, as we found out, many e-commerce businesses do benefit from it because of the inspiration content that's in there. If chances are, if some company does inspirational content on there, the interest for this vertical is increasing, and someone along the journey somewhere else can find your business. So Pinterest is contributing to overall e-commerce as it is, but to find that link for e-commerce businesses to, like with the pins, with the advertisement, and all these things that they can do on the platform to really convert the customers at your platform. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Effe. Thank you. I enjoyed the conversation a lot. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the E-commerce Germany News Podcast. If you did, make sure to give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and follow us on our channels. Feel free to also recommend this podcast to your contacts and friends that may want to know more about e-commerce, digital marketing, and success stories. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and see you on the next episode. We just recorded a very fantastic podcast episode, Martin and I, from Pinterest, but I have to tell you that we made a mistake. We forgot to mention the most pinned vegetable in Germany. We did mention something, but obviously we were wrong. So I'll go back to Martin. Martin, please tell us what's the most pinned vegetable in Germany?
Thank you, Effe, and I think this is really important that we're making this correction because the most pinned vegetable in Germany is not the avocado. That's our UK friends, and I apologize. I like avocado, but for the Germans, it's the zucchini. So this was really an important correction to make, and I'm glad we're including this in this podcast.
I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed because I've been pinning avocados all my life. Now, to see that zucchini won is kind of disappointing.
It is the most pinned vegetable in Germany. That's what it is. Zucchini is great. You can do a lot of stuff with it, right? As you can do with the avocado. But again, thanks for taking the time for this important correction. And
I'm curious how it's going to look like next year. So I think everyone can stay tuned.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll keep. And maybe to mention, there is a tool called Pinterest Trends, trends.pinterest.com, where you can see what people are currently searching for and pinning on Pinterest.
Similar to Google Trends, right?
But much, much more interesting, of course. Yes, exactly. So it's a trends tool. And as people are planning and, starting to look for things that they want to do in their lives, we can extract a lot of trends from that behavior. And by the way, yearly, we also publish something called Pinterest Predicts, where we're going to look into next year, so a year in preview, and what's going to trend. That's going to be released soon, so stay tuned for that.
Wow, super nice. Thank you so much, Martin.
Thank you, Effe.